Hi everyone, welcome back to the studio. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this Plains Indian, the Native American painting here that I've been promising you guys to put him onto a Plains Indian onto an Appaloosa. I've been dying to paint this, and so I thought we'd start it today. Now there's one of the greatest artists, if you're interested in studying them, one of the greatest artists that I have ever found is Howard Terpning. It's Terpning. Just put him into a Google search. He has a couple of small videos on YouTube. Put him in there and you will see some of the most awesome paintings of the American Indians in their lifestyle and battles and everything that they have had. I don't think that there's a finer painter out there than Howard Terpning as far as going and pulling your reference. So what I have out here, this isn't a photo. This is something that I do if I've never done something before and I've never painted a Plains Indian before. And so I sit down for an entire day's worth of study into Photoshop and I start putting together my image or the idea. I'll grab Indians from different paintings, or sometimes, in Westerns, what I like to do is take the old Western movies and I watch them on my computer and screen grab certain sets of horses and stuff. And so I'll grab certain Indians or horses and stuff that I see in the back of something and then place them in Photoshop and then atmospheric them in, shove them back, do all different kinds of stuff, change their sizes. Now, for the horses that I had here, I originally started out before I placed an Indian. So all of this is Photoshopped. I've put in different elements and bringing them together. So for the horse, I originally started out with this. I buy these photos from Adobe Stock. So this was the main body of the horse, and I started and I thought, ooh, this is really nice because I do like the atmospheric trees back there and stuff. Even though I was going to do the plains, yeah, you could have something like that as well. But then as I started to development, I felt I love this horse and the way this horse is turned, this Appaloosa, but it was covering up a lot of the Indian. So I decided to put for the Native American here, I decided to put him, and this head is from a different painting, and then put him in and to see the way he was, and then see if I could find a horse that had kind of that look, like they're both looking at something. And then I turn over to Adobe Stock, and I found one that had pretty much the same gaze, and I liked this one, pretty much the same gaze. And so I purchased this one here, and then I just I put them together into Photoshop, into different layers, blend them together. I did like the dappling spots that are back here, and so I added it here, taking out some of the white rump of the other horse and adding a little bit more. And so basically what I do is I love Photoshop. And, in the old days, I would have to sketch everything and then to imagine it. And these days, as I build designs and build paintings and stuff, I love to do it in Photoshop and put them together with layers and try different looks. And yesterday, as I was kind of finalizing this look, one of my friends, who's another artist here, he came in, he said, why don't you put the decorations around the horse? And it is so true. We live out here in the plains. I live out in the plains, what's called the shortgrass prairie of Nebraska. And so all of these, where the Indians, the Native Americans lived, was all around here. So we have a lot of history and stuff here. But the buffalo hunters and stuff, and so they painted decorations, and I'm going to put that on my horse here. The eye, they would paint a circle around the eye to increase the senses or the vision and sharpness and stuff of the horse, keep it alert and stuff. And so they had beautiful symbolism to their decorations and meanings to it. And so I might add a few more to it, but you can find all of that. Just put in horse, Native American horse markings into Google, and you'll find how they decorated their horses and each decoration has a different meaning to it, and it's really fascinating. It's really, really fascinating. I just absolutely love it, the history and stuff of it. So it's really nice to paint some of that history. And I didn't put a sharp point on the spear or anything here. I'm just going to make this a hunting spear. I'll paint that in. I just put a line down for what that's going to be, and then I'll fix the image for lights and shadows and all this kind of stuff, and we'll get in that with the painting. But that's how I do it. So I put that in, and then I transfer and sketch. So I do both, transfer and sketch. I'll fill in some other elements and stuff. And you've seen how I do that kind of stuff before. But so then I get my image on here, and then we're ready to go. Now, on his shield, and I found all different kinds of beautiful. I'd go out and search just all different kinds of beautiful Indian shields, and he has a deer on this one. On this one that I found that I put in. This was from a totally different thing. I put it in there and turn it and rock and roll it till I feel it feels good in with his arm, and then he has on this particular shield is the deer and stuff. But I'm going to put the buffalo since I live in buffalo country here. And Photoshop is a lot of fun because I sit there and take some of the tones that I would find in his face, and then I airbrushed and put in and built his body and stuff in here. And so it's kind of fun to put it all together and do that in Photoshop. Those of you that are members and stuff of the of the channel, will put some of these reference photos in, but you'll have my original painting also over there. And then I'll put a picture or photo of my sketch and stuff in there as well, so you'll be able to use that as your idea, so you want to paint them. All right, okay, so down into my palette. This is my normal palette of colors. I did put out a sapphire blue and a medium beige, so I have that to work with. We'll work with some bigger brushes here for a minute. I'm going to start out like I do with the sky and everything. Now, I watched Howard Turpin's videos. He has a couple, and he talks about how he started it, and he doesn't like the white, and he puts on a burnt umber or sometimes a burnt sienna and green background wash over it, and then actually transfers his design with the chalk. I learned how to do that in the 70s and stuff, so it was kind of nice to see that. He is an older artist now. I believe he's in his 90s, like 94 or so. But he has just such an inspiration for those who want to do that. But I'm going to start this way. I think putting on a burnt umber or a darker wash will defeat our purposes of the lightness that I want to keep to the entire painting. So I am just going to go right into the washes of color, okay? All right, so, and I'm going to start right with my big brush here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to maybe work in some clouds and stuff back here. You've seen me do this before. I'm going to take some blue, right? And then I'll take quite a bit of the white. And I want to go, you're looking at value-wise to that sky. We're up here, about a good 8. So it's a nice light sky. And so I don't use up all my white. I'm just going to put out a little bit more here. It takes a lot of white to make this blue light. So I want to keep it light like this. And because I'm going to keep some of this basically onto my palette here, so I can soften and atmosphere some of this later. So you see, that's right about it is. But it's just needs just the tiniest hint of violet in there, and it won't take very much. It just, because the violet is so, see how that changes it? It doesn't take very much. The Quinacridone Violet in the Heritage line is very powerful. Now, we'll take this we'll take our big brush with some extender. We'll touch into some of this color. I'm going to put some wispy clouds. You see me do this in the last couple of westerns and stuff. The wispy clouds into the sky. I want that. That's the kind of sky clouds that are here on the prairie in the summertime and stuff. So I want to add those types of clouds. Now, I could build up, a real big, powerful, like thunderstorm in the back, but I think that would take away from from him. And I want to paint him just so he doesn't have a bunch of stuff to compete against, if that makes sense. I don't want him competing against a whole bunch of stuff. So I'm going to drag down some of this down below my line here. Then if you're worried about your drawing or your image and stuff, you can just wipe back slightly. Leave the blue back there, but just lightly wipe back. I'm not worried too much about losing some of it, but you can just wipe back, and that'll keep that nice and soft, and then that'll allow us to come back in and build that. But this is really wet right now. I put in quite a bit of extender, maybe a little too much. I can feel the surface with my brush, and that's what I'm doing. I'm feeling the surface with my brush, and it is just a little too slick for me right now. And so I'm going to put on just a touch more paint here. And then I want to go a little bit darker, just a touch darker up at the top. That is good atmospherics, a little bit of violet, too much violet. Blue and violet. Let's work a little darker here, right across the top here. Okay. And I'll pull down, work this down, lift the pressure on my brush so I get some nice softness to it. I've got a couple of little grungies in there creating those marks. But I want to leave this kind of atmosphere through there. I call that the atmosphere of the painting. So a little darker up at the top up there. Here. Pull through, pull down a bit. Let it just fade away going down here. That's good. We'll pull some of that off of our Native American there. Okay. That looks pretty good. We'll just soften right up to that. There we go. Now we can always, so I'm going to save some of this for, later on here. I'll just go ahead and push this up. I'll know, even if I decide, it depends on how far I get today because it's late in the day here. So I'm kind of starting this late in the day. So how long I paint on it today might not be too much. And sometimes what I do, if I'm going to do that, is I'll just take that little bit of blob of paint there and paint it out on a piece of white paper. Just take a piece of white paper, paint it out. Then I have a color sample of that background. I don't have to be perfect. I just have to be close. As a matter of fact, it's always better not to be perfect. Really is. All right. So now, just like we've done before, let's take some white, but I don't want it to be pure white. I want it to be dirtied up just a touch. So we'll add a little bit of the blue and a little bit of our burnt sienna to it. So it's not pure white. So here's pure white. These are grayed just a bit. And we'll use this to push in some of our wispy clouds. So, and like I told you before, I like when I'm going to do wispy clouds, the summer, the real sheer clouds you see of the summer, not the big thunderstorms, but some of the sheer clouds. I like the blues, the background of the sky to be a little bit weak, a little bit transparent, and then I want the whites and stuff that I put on here to be a little bit heavier. And let's just streak some right down through here. Right down, right around like that. Now, and then what I'm going to do is just to soften that, I'll just pinch wipe my brush. You've seen me do this before, just so it's soft. And I'll just pull across a few times here, maybe in a downward motion to make them look like windswept or something like that. But I'll leave that just like that, just as simple as that. And that looks pretty good. I can come back and add more later if I want, but I really like that. I do kind of like that little bit bigger right up there. Maybe just a tiny bit lighter, a little bit thicker, a little bit more paint right up there as a bigger kind of cloud. So it's a little heavier, a little bit more paint, but leave that, just tap it and leave kind of those wispy edges because those just blur out really nice onto a cloud here, like that. That looks kind of neat like that. Maybe pull down, whisper down a bit here, like that. That looks kind of cool. So I like those real wispy, you know, just to keeps it from a blue sky. But as you can see here, a blue sky adds quite a bit to it. So I'm a little bit more blue. This is a little bit more violet. I might want to add a little more violet later on. One of the reasons is I'm very yellow here. So I like those little violet touches. And so I might want to put in just a little more violet because yellow and the violets are complements and you get a good reaction to that. So let's just do that. Just a whisper of that through. And if I knock out my clouds a bit, let's add this along the horizon line maybe. A little bit of extender. And if I knock out some of my clouds, that's okay because they're easy to add, really easy. So let's take just a little bit of violet. Yeah, see, that's pretty color. And I don't know if the camera can pick up that subtle little change that I just had in those violets. But it just goes a little bit more violet here. As you can see in that corner, it gets closer to that particular background over there. So that I have in the photo. I like that in the photo, slightly violet. So we'll just thin this out and add a little bit of the violet. An atmosphere like this, you know, working your backgrounds and your atmosphere like this is really neat. And it gives you a little bit of that violet up through there. Just adds so much to your, to your painting here. We'll bring these guys up, see how they're going to look there. That's going to be pretty good. We don't need too much of our drawing there. But a bit of that violet, that looks really nice right along that horizon. Maybe up close to him, a bit of that. Right up there. Right through some of this. There we go. That's a nice... I feel it's nice and soft, but you can see how this particular color here gets closer than what that original one does there. I'll put a little bit more up here so you can see that. It's a little closer in color. And it's just a real nice play against against the sky, darker color, a little bit of violet and lighter. So that's pretty good. I'm going to rinse that brush out because I'm not going to use it for, well, excuse me, I have to go into my yellows here. Let's go ahead and add the yellows, okay? The yellows are up in the front. And I want to, down here, I've had it before. You've seen me do these a lot. I have a lot of Westerns on the channel where I paint a lot of the prairie and stuff. I'm going to start out with some real thin yellow oxide. I might jump it up a little bit more in the front. And I want this to kind of dry fast, so I'm not going to add any extenders. I'm just going to add some waters to this. And you can see the yellow oxide is a nice bright color here for this. It gets that intermediate tone that I've used before down into the grasses and stuff down here. And it's nice because I can thin it out with some water. I can go right over some of the edges of my horse here. Really give it a nice dose of color here. And some pop. And you can touch in a bit of the burnt sienna, which is really pretty, which builds most of the prairie colors that I like to build. And just model this in like this. Just tap and model this in. And I'm staying low, right up about the chest of the horse and lower. And because that's where I want the brightest colors. As we go further back, let's just build a little bit more of that right up in here. So we'll just, as we go back now, away from this, what we want to do is go atmosphere, right? So let me just move this to the side here. And I'll take another paper towel, pinch some of this color out of here. And we'll just, well, let's just do it with my knife here. We'll just grab some of this right over into here. And what this does is brings the sky and that ground together, and it's going to create the depth, right? So we'll bring the sky and the ground together here, and then we'll increase the look here, a little bit more sky of this, and soften this out a bit as we come back through here, right through the little guys. I'm going to end up drawing them back on again. probably. We'll do a little bit there. But that is going to give us our depth, and I want to just blur those lines slightly here, where that, so it gets the depth. So as you go further back, you want this to kind of blur off. I'm going to, and I'll do this sometimes. I'll just go ahead and put this on. This is a little bit higher than what I envisioned before, but that's okay. I kind of like it. And so, and then I'll drag some of that down, right? And so it's got a pretty darn good bit of the atmosphere there, but I can just go back and touch a little bit of that violet and pull down across like this, right through, and that will blur that line. You see me do this on seascapes and stuff, and then the dirty that you get with a little bit of the yellows, I like to touch it up through the skies to create some of that harmony into the sky, and I like that. Sometimes I'll take some of those yellows up into the clouds. I'm going to add just a bit of that violet and that yellow into that white right up here, like this cloud. It may be a little bit right in here, right through. Sometimes I like the clouds to just go right through my subject here. That's kind of neat. Just wispy clouds, sometimes right along the horizon here. Just a touch or so of them to put in some more interest here. That's good. Right like that. I like that. I like the clouds to be the unexpected shapes that you would see here. And we'll just pull off just a bit here. There we go. Here you are. I don't want him to have a blue face, so I'm just wiping some of that tone out of there. Okay? So now we've kind of set up, we've got some of this bright color that's right up in here. That bright color that's up there will tone down. As we make stuff lighter, it's actually, white is actually what we call a toner. It will tone down, so we'll take care of some of that. I'm going to pull some of this off to the side. This is all just beautiful harmony color. And I would use, I'll just show you, I would use colors like this to break up, because it's the sky and the prairie here, and I would use this to break up some of the, some of the depth and definition, or some of the atmospheric depth that you develop in a painting. That's what I would use for that, to do that. Let's get a little blue, a little bit of those yellows here, and just tap some of that along. See, that just does magical things there, for the absolute depth of the painting. We'll tap a bit of yellow, a little bit of lighter yellow right in here. And see, this is dry. It's drying really fast because I didn't add any extender to it. So I'm just dragging this over just to break up the color, was what I want. So we're going to do a lot of this painting, but that just helps me see some of the image here that I might want here. And I like that particular bit. I might want, and you can do your clouds, softness, soft clouds as well with the brush as well. I've shown you that, of just building and pushing in some softness into your clouds that way as well. So if you want to build up a little bit more, or set a slightly different motion, or soften something out, you can do that with your brush as well. But I love that kind of casual nature to that. That works pretty good. All right. So, and if you want, before you can paint, I had the drawing. Of course, you can't see his ear and stuff here anymore. So you can take just your damp brush and just start running it along here a little bit to bring back out your drawing, or you do it again like I do several times. But I know right where he is, so I'll bring some of that back out. Let's go in. I love to paint the horses, the horses and stuff here. I just love it. So I'm going to grab, let's grab this one. I have a bunch of old brushes here. I want to paint For the last couple of days I've been looking a lot at Howard Turpin's paintings, and his technique and his brush movement is just amazing. All of the broken edges, and you listen to him. There's an interview on there. You listen to him, and he talks about the colors, the values, intensities, and edges. Edges are so important. And you look at where he builds paints and how he blurs off edges, and that just gives so much interest, life, and stuff to the painting. And so I don't use new brushes. I use old brushes that are all flared out, and that's going to help me paint soft edges. Stay away from the perfect edges. I want to come in here. I'm going to grab some of my burnt sienna. I'm going to grab some of my blue here just to gray this up. This is beautiful color, and burnt sienna and green and your darker blue, these are some of the darker colors we'll use on the horse, the burnt sienna and the blue. I can add some extenders to this to keep it wet longer. A good thing is whenever you go dark, you go transparent. Whenever you do your shadows are transparent. And then your midtones, this will be heading into our midtones on our horse. Let's add some extender. So burnt sienna, a little bit of our sapphire blue, gives you a nice medium gray. What you're going to find that is into the middle areas here of the horse. And I'm going to start, a lot of times you see me start with pure shadows. A lot of artists do. I'm going to start a little bit more towards the midtone. Maybe even a little bit of white and yellow into this. Okay, so it's a good mid-tone grayish brown that you see in the horse. And let's just come in, because then we'll build more color, more depth and stuff like that into this. And we're going to block in, basically poster block. And I want to do this. I want to keep my brush moving in all different kinds of angles. Now before, I've always told you we do, form following strokes and marks. We call marks of color. And I'm going to be doing that, but I want to keep this. You look at the horse, it's got all these different colors and dapples of color here. And I want to be able to capture some of that. So I don't want my marks to be like long marks. I want them to be short. Everything is short in here. And I'm going to do light and dark, and I'm just going to start breaking this up. So right up and through here, we're going to be, giving him his spots and stuff. So we want to break it up. And we'll come back and paint light in there as well. So, and then we can grab a little bit more, maybe a little bit of the dark. As we come down here, we can start finding some of our shadows here. But the edge, when you come out to the edge, I want you to be don't build it perfect and don't make a perfect edge of paint. Sometimes I will just take it and run my finger down it so I don't make it perfect, or I use a small mark like this, kind of a sketching little mark. I don't want the edges to be absolutely perfect right now. Let's give him a little shadow for that deep muscle on his chest here, right? So we'll, and I'm going to slowly build him. So I'm going to go back and forth here between my lights and my darks, maybe a little yellows, real mottled up in color, guys. Real mottled in color here. And because he's going to change colors so many times. And you got to, the great horse painters that we have even today, they work an area several times. And I'm going to work this guy a lot, many times, back and forth and stuff, especially because, you've seen me in that last Western that I did, working like an Appaloosa. It was a gray dapple horse, and you've seen me work those spots and stuff, and I'll put a lot of work into them. So, back and forth with the colors. Let's get some of that. Let's get some of this light in here, right? And I want all this modeling of color onto them here. And rough little edges. Nothing perfect right now. Rough little edges, Vary those edges. Sometimes I'll pull in like this so that edge gets really soft. Now, I want to have more of a defined edge. Matter of fact, I'll just show you, like right up here, I'm going to eventually want a real defined edge, which is going to help our horse placement within the painting. So we will have a found edge there. I'm going to let the backside so you be more lost. And here I blurred that out when I put it there to see if I like that, and see what I was when I was blurring that out. I was looking for blurring the shoulders, bringing the head up a little bit more. So bring the edges really sharp up at the top so the viewer's eye blurs down through here and comes up here. The viewer's eye is going to go wherever there's the greatest definition. So one of the things I kind of was thinking about was to get more definition right up here, right up like onto his ear, into this area, dark, and you can see like he has up there, those real sharp, I really like those real sharp, pointy little ears on this guy. Matter of fact, they bend over just a bit, but I don't have a super fine brush, so I'm not going to be able to get a real clean edge. I might come back and fix that, but let's just... But that real dark and stuff here and with an edge is going to bring this part of him forward, and this part down here softens out, blurs out like I started there. So you see him, you know, just the horse here, just really clear. And I kind of like that. I'm going to take a little bit of blue and some of my burnt sienna here, dark color, just the corner of my brush. I'm going to balance my hand here for just a second. And I'm just going to tap in I'm not going to work the eye. I'm just going to tap in the area that we're going to work that eye there onto the horse. I'm not going to worry about getting perfect there right now. Just to put in some of that dark so we see that. And so it has a lot of the blue into it. Let's put in the part of the nostrils here, okay, but both of them this little pointed out here. We'll work this a lot, but that just helps me see it, right? Let's take this soft gray, a little bit of extender, a little bit more gray, a little bit of the blue in here helps you gray it up a little. So more blue and it becomes more gray. Does that make sense? So, but we want some of that brown. And let's just get this side of the face here, right where we see maybe that edge there. And you know, with a lot of times, you know, in paintings that you paint on the channel with me here, I'll say we're gonna avoid a lot of the little halftones. We're just gonna paint right now for light and dark. See where you see the light and dark of the painting. And you can start this guy out the same way, painting just for light and shadow. And then we'll come back and add some of the others. There's a little lighter lower lip there. And we come back later and we can add some of that in later. It doesn't all need to be done right now, right? So there, you can always look at it that way. Now let's put some light in there. Lighten it up, gray, warm. So this is a little cooler because it has more blue in it. So this would be a light cool. This would be a light warm that has more burnt sienna in it, right? And so we'll look at some of that coming right down the center. He's got to go whiter. I want him whiter here, but this will, and blur right up into his hairline. We don't need that right yet, okay? So he's a little bit darker than I want, and that's okay. What I'm looking at is tones that you see underneath here. And I want to put in the side of his face, this big, huge side here. Goodbye ring around his eye here. Just tap and model some of that in. Now let's come back, add some white, maybe some of this nice warmth over here. Not pure white. Stay away from pure white. We don't use pure white for a while, but we might go up to an 8 or a 9 here in value. So here's my white. This is the white. You can see it's not white. And it'll paint down as I start to add this. down his face here. And I want to model this short, little choppy stuff, right? And that just adds more interest. You can see immediately how much more interest that starts to add to him. And I really want to just dive in there and start painting it, but we want to go through a block first so that we can really clearly see him, right? So we don't want to go too far with him, right? So another little bit right up there, right? We have some wider little marks right across here, which is going to set his the marks there on his nose. We're going to have some more shadows. I can go ahead and put some of the what I call these landmarks, marks of tone that are very specific to the drawing. Helps me preserve my original drawing, and so I can preserve some of those marks that you see, ridges and stuff like that. And let's go with a lighter gray here, warm, right down through here. It's going to put his neck in. Oh, that's the other thing that I really want to do is that I was reading in there that the Native Americans into some of the horses would weave. Of course, you have the eagle's feathers, and they would put them on their shields and stuff as well. So I'm going to add some in there. But they'd also weave them into the mane of the horse for the strength of the eagle or hawks, some of the birds of prey. They would do that. It's just fascinating reading. I love it. And they had, of course, all different kinds of ways, but we'll just mark this up right now. Don't lose all of my lights here, just to mark that up a bit, right? And I'll go a little bit dark, a little more burnt sienna into my dark here, and put in, I just want to see the color of the tone. I'm not perfect here yet, but I just want to see the color and the tone that would be here on his mane. So we'll just put some of that in here. Streak it in. Just get some of that color and that tone in that. And that's good enough for right now. Now I'm going to set that brush down for just a second. I'm going to go to a smaller one just because I want to correct some of the lines around his face. So I want to put in, this big line that's right here. This just really gives him his look, the look of the horse. And so there's times when I look at something and I was like, okay, that's wrong. I got that wrong a little bit or off. I'll go ahead and, even though it's early in the painting, and I mean we're early in the painting, I'll go ahead and correct it a little bit just because it's going to bother me. Does that make sense? If it's going to bother me a lot and I keep looking over and seeing it, I'll go back and correct some of that. But there's a lot of detail that I want to use here into him that I want to add, and I'm just going to add a little bit right now. Just can't help myself. Just have to add a bit of it in there. And so I'll do that right now. Reset that line. And a little bit of light here down that line. And but we'll keep everything simple, guys. Just everything right now, just simple blocking in. And it gets actually easier after we let this dry a bit. It'll get easier to get some additional work in there because we've got the underpainting in there. And then the rest of the decorations and stuff will go a lot easier. So I'm just going to add this right in here. This line back here. Maybe a little bit of my grays and stuff. I want to just really go in here and go to town on this, but I know it's best to block in the horse mostly through some of the other stuff before I get too involved in there. It just works better that way. But I do want to get some of the idea of the structure. So above the horse is these big heavy eye sockets, and I do like to see them pretty soon within the painting, because then I know my structure is correct there. Okay, and maybe just a bit on the side, the light there on the side, that big side of his face. And we'll model in a bit of the grays here. A little bit of the grays that sets that side plane down. Good. Bit of blue there, but that's okay. This will all be done again. So that sets some of that in. I'm just going to correct that dark that's in the eye here. I drug some light right up in there, so we'll just correct that right now. Good, that sets that in. He doesn't have the, you know, that real spring or that excited look into him yet that the original does. And part of that is, you know, I got to get the, you know, with my horse, you know, all the years, you could always tell what he was thinking by his ears, you know, and his ears would always go. And when they were standing up, or he would get angry when he would fold them back because he was just, you know, you did something he didn't like. He would fold them back again. But this little guy's ears are right up. He's interested in something that's going on. So I want to make sure that I don't lose that first feeling there. A little bit more. So this is just a small little, and I don't want to put any ridges of paint, but this is just a small little, what is this one? This is the 4 filbert. So it's just a little one. And I can just add a few little smaller marks here to just correct some of this here, right in there. That'll just set his feeling a bit. And you know, the one thing I painted, I think it's on the channel here a long time ago. I painted the whole horse and forgot the tail on the horse. So I don't want to forget that yet. So I'm just going to take a little dark and push that in there, maybe catch a bit of it right here. But just give the idea of that right there so we see that. And I don't want to forget that. So I'll go back to my bigger brush here. And let's go in first with these lighter grays. We're going to dapple up back here, but I'll take a little bit of the blue and burnt sienna. The beautiful grays, comes a lot of that sapphire, medium beige. These are beautiful colors to make grays. And so let's just, and I think I narrowed his rump down a little bit too much on the drawing. So now that it's gone, I'm going to give myself another look at it here. Maybe a bit more of this other medium color right in there. Okay, we're going to dapple him up though. So this will start him up like that. That'll be a good gray. Some of this gray down, right down here where we're going to paint for the form, for his form. Let's get a little yellow, a little burnt sienna right into some of this warmer color. Right in here. Right in here. We'll get to paint moccasins and stuff. It's just fun to be able to, I'm just going to drag across there so I carry the correct line. Let's go a little heavier white, not white. I'm nowhere near white. I'm down about an 8 here. And so it's basically kind of like an undertone. And I'll tap and move and paint, and I'm building in some paint. More than anything else, I'm doing the undertone of what this horse is going to be. But I want this. See all this modeling in through here? We want that. We're going to do that several times to generate that interest. And you can see it's not as light even as it is on the original photo. I think in the editing, we're going to put the photo right up there. So it'll be right up there, okay? So I'll keep pointing over here, but I think in the editing, they said they'll put the palette right here and then the photo right up there. So just because of the size of the painting here. Oh, which I didn't tell you guys, huh? It's a guess. I, I put him out here. You can do, if you don't want him so big, you can do a 14 by 18. This is a 16 by 20, so it's 16 this way, 20 inches this way. Standard frame size, I think. And I thought that would make a nice one. Nice standard frame size here. So we'll do that, and then we'll go right back down here to our browns and a little bit of extender, some warmer colors here. We'll come in through here with some of that warmth, right? Let's drag just a bit of that in here so the color carries. We'll drag a little bit of that into this one here. Just drag that a bit. And then we'll go a touch darker. Burnt sienna, little blues here. Burnt sienna, some blues, some of this darker color right in here. That gives the roundness. There goes his legs in there. And we won't be, I painted hooves in the last one. We won't paint hooves this time because they'll be down into the prairie grass. And you do sink down in the prairie grass out here. So, yep. Here we go. And so we'll drop this. Let this here be atmospheric. Blur the edges here. And it's really wet still. See how wet that is? I can blur that edge really nice, and you'll be able to see when I blur that edge, look at how much more that edge recedes back than this edge up here in the front. Does that make sense? So that's what those edges do. That's the idea of those edges here. Let's straighten up his head there just a bit. That'll be good. And I feel his face is maybe a touch wide right there. So this is the time I come back through and I start, thinning out and making sure my drawing is a little bit correct. Sometimes it's well, at least for me, because I used to paint completely 100%, do the drawing and everything with my brush, for years. And then I started to put the designs together using Photoshop, because I started, well, you got to remember in the 70s, I started painting in 1976 when I was in high school. And we didn't have Photoshop or computers or stuff like that. So I was taught to create the painting with the brush as you go, or if you created a drawing and then you would transfer your drawing, we would do the drawing, then flip it over and put chalk on the back side, and then flip it back over, put it on the surface that we want, and then transfer and draw over it, and the chalk would leave the marks. And so that was always really fun that way, like that. So there we go. So now that's got him blocked in a bit. Now we can, let's put in a bit of dark for where some of those darker muscles, and right in here where that throat comes down into his chest, you'll get that darkness. But I want to do this, guys. Leave this all modeled. Don't go blending any of that out to try to make it smooth. We don't want anything smooth, okay? We want to keep it very much modeled, very much, brushwork, a lot of brushwork. Interest into the colors like that. See, that's where you get that interest, and it's just working it back and forth a few times. Let's put in this heavier shadow there for that big line on his chest there. See, doesn't that look great? And so my paint, we're supposed to have shadows a little thinner, but sometimes when I come back and I'm modeling like this, I like the paint to be a little thicker, like you see here. Has almost a sticky nature to it, and I want that so that it doesn't bleed out or blend out. So I want this. If you look at that, it's kind of transparent. It's kind of transparent, but it's got this almost sticky nature to it, and I like that, dragging it over. And sometimes you get what we call the granulated stroke. The granulated stroke is this. It drags like that. That's called a granulated mark or granulated stroke. And so that's great for dry brushing, what we call dry brushing as well. But it's great for putting in some of your highlights and decorations and lights and the shimmer of the light going over the surface, that kind of stuff. It's really good for doing that. Okay, all right. So I'm going to small down his, I have him on a blanket on it. They didn't always write on a blanket or anything, but I have one here. I'm going to small that down a bit here. Maybe just take this in again. A touch. Let's get some of the grays and just do this. Just model it up. That's what you want, because that's what's going to help him make all that dappling, you know, that we're going to do here. Maybe just a touch of the light will dapple back up into this, and this will create the highs and lows, will create the spots. But doesn't that look good? And so what happens is, and with the heritage that I have here, it's still wet, like everything that I touch here. See, it's still wet here, so I could blend in and blur those lines. But as it tightens up, and I spoke to you this last time in the last video about the collace, how the you know, in that floor we talked about how you're going from wet, and then as the acrylics start to dry, they tighten up, and then they collace. They start the process called coalescing, and you can feel that on the surface when it starts to get sticky, and that's what's happening here. And then that's really good times to do this, just quick little jabs, okay? One of my friends used to call that stab art. You just go in there and just kind of stab the painting like this with your brush, and that gives you all of this beautiful modeling that really looks like hair. And, you know, sometimes towards the end of the painting, I'll do it exactly in the form that we want. Right now, I just want to break up some of that, you know. So right now, see, it's really sticky right in here. And that's what I'm looking for. And I'll build this up a little lighter in here because we're going to be building some dappling up in here as well. So, yeah, we'll start that. There we go, like that. And that'll be good. I think that will work. Let's take a little thinner. I'm going to thin out your little extender. Thin out and build this shoulder up and this shadow down in through here. Just soft. So all of this, you know, I'm going to be doing this several times, working the horse, and we'll soften all of this, add other colors, and, you know, all of that art thing all over. But it gets that blocked in, and look at how it jumps off of that surface. That's kind of neat, right? All right, so now we'll come in and let's take a little, we'll just block in a little burnt sienna, a little red right across here, and, you know, some of the other colors will come off in my brush because I don't clean my brush when I'm blocking like this. I like the colors to translate from one to the other. Little yellow, a little bit of medium beige, maybe a bit of the white in here so it's a little lighter and stuff. This is, and see, I'll let these colors come off like this, and I'll go right over the eagle feathers I added in there. Right, we'll blur some of those lines. That'll be nice. Let's grab some of the dark burnt sienna blue, some of those burnt sienna and phthalo blue, a little dark right over here onto this side. And yeah, that's kind of neat, that half of it there. And I'll draw in with my small, when I come back with my smaller brush, we'll draw in that buffalo probably right in here, right in this area. So I'll just put the mark in there so I know right where that buffalo's going to go in there. And, you know, it's whatever you do, the most important thing is, whatever you do here, don't leave texture, because that, you know, we have to paint up on top of this, so don't leave texture. medium beige, touch of yellow for his buckskin pants here. And he has that side decoration. Got this off of this idea here off of Howard Turpinine painting. You know, it's just, and it's beautiful. Like I say, he is just captures them like, and the wonderful nature. And he talks about in the video on YouTube, he talks about capturing, about being a figure painter and capturing the, you know, the feeling, the emotion of the time. It's just an amazing. So, and it's good to study that. Let's make a light grade color down his side here. Keep it all just casual for right now. You can put in an idea of the blues, but this is all going to change. So you can put in and I would use whatever you used up into the sky. That's what you're going to do, right? And because it carries the colors down. Here, just an idea. And when I paint stuff like this, I like to go back and forth, and I might even take a bit of that blue. You know what I always say, once you express a color, carry a color, right? So you'll see me carry that color through some of the other areas. And even though you don't see it, like, because you know, when I do a Photoshop like that, it's not going in for harmony. Sometimes I do, but I didn't do it on that one. And so, you know, those colors need to be harmonized. You need to have some commonality to some of them. And what I mean is, so that blue, you'll see that blue expressed in other parts of the painting here. So all of a sudden that blue, you know, doesn't have as much power. It has some power. Let's take a little bit of that light. So now maybe a little bit of the sky and that blue here. We'll just take this and maybe add a bit of this over here to the horse. Something like that. Right in there. Then we will maybe just take a dark color here. We'll put light colors on his moccasins and stuff too. But just to, so we don't forget it, I'm going to do a lot of detail on here. I really want to capture this really nice. So I'll be putting on some details and stuff there. Don't have all of the saddle like we do with the, you know, with the Western, with the cowboys. But we could give the idea of the blanket. And boy, I tell you, it just beautiful, you know. Howard paints just absolutely beautiful, just decorations to the horse and the Native Americans. That is just magnificent. Okay, let's come back in, and that's one of the things I do want to kind of get right. And you know, the burnt sienna, and I'm going to be bringing in, when we go to do his face, found a beautiful portrait one that is softer and a little bit softer than that guy, the face. And I'm going to be using that to kind of emulate it in. But burnt sienna, a little bit of green, and some white. And sometimes you can darken or add a bit of that extra warmth with the red and the green here. Nice color. But a lot of it is burnt sienna, toned burnt sienna and green, toned colors. Here, let's see where that is. And that looks pretty good comparatively to that other one over there. This is back to my smaller filbert. And I want to, again, I want to leave some marks. Of course, this is his arm and shoulder here. Okay, so I want to do that. I'll do this other shoulder just right out through here like this. And his hand is going to come right up here around the spear. And I'll bring this other with his hand right in here that's going to be holding on to the reins. Here. The steering wheel. I'm just lightly going to sketch this in here. And then I'll be adding some more darks, but we can lighten up here, add a little bit of light, maybe just a touch of the yellow to this. Let's see where that's going to go. I think it's more red, but we'll add that in right now. The beauty is going to come from, you know, we're going to really take our times to capture these flesh colors here. There we go. There. And back to some more burnt sienna and just a touch of that green in here. Just a touch. And we'll take that shadow down, right down this side here a bit, right up underneath his neck. Let that blur just a bit there. Let's gonna make a little bit more burnt sienna green. And I want these tones. He's small. I mean, he is small, but I do want to, you know, really grab some nice color. Now that's a little too dark. You can see that. So I'll just run a little light right through it here. And I don't want to create a ridge at all. So I'll run that through here. And we should pull this down because his chest, we want him turned slightly. So let's add a bit of extender here. Lighten this up. Let's pull down this way a bit, which will build his chest. Then I'll come back with the shadow again, right in there. Set that shadow. A little more burnt sienna. You know, when I like to, just like I did on the horse, I like to always, on my figures and stuff, constantly be changing some of the colors and tones. And as you set him up, so maybe sometimes a few marks of more direct burnt sienna. You know, that's a little bit more shadow here. A little bit more shadow, and of course we'll do a lot more. But yeah, that's and real dark, real dark. Nice, right up in here. And this shadow is really important. Of course, it's, you know, going here, but it's going to frame his face and then up onto his face, and we'll drop some shadow right down here, which will help bring his shoulder forward. But that framing of the face is real important because he has a darker shadow there on that side of the face. But so what I'm, you know, more than anything else, like what I do right now is I'm painting for light and shadow. Let's grab just a touch of that red, maybe a touch of that yellow here. Some white. And I'm looking for that lighter light right there. I think that's kind of got it. We'll drag a little bit over. We'll let some of that just sit for right now. You know, I just start getting close to, and what's going to be different here is you see the acrylics dry darker, so we'll be able to kind of look at what it is that we're doing here. And it's going to have all these decorations all down through here. So just blur some of that off down in through there. Okay. And I'm going to want some of that nice warmth, skin tone right in there. And so let's get some of this nice warm, where the lights are on him up here, and we'll paint him right at the very beginning here for just light and shadow up onto his cheeks. So we're going to put in just light and shadow right now. So, you know, a little bit of the mid-tone here, down the lower part of his face here. Wider cheeks. So we'll pull down through here, right in there, and go. Right across. A little bit of shadow now. Slightly darker. Right up onto the cheeks. And like I said, I'm going to really, really paint him carefully and a lot of detail later on because I really want to. But he's small, so we have to remember that. But it is a figure. But I want to do a nice job and on him. So just kind of sneak those colors in there, right? Just little bits. And, you know, those of you who've painted portraits with me, we know we have that down the side of his nose is where you put that shadow, down the side of his nose there and stuff. We'll really do a lot more. We'll put a touch lighter up here on the bridge, what we call the T across the head and stuff there. So we'll put some of that in right now up onto the tips of the high points of the cheeks there, like that. Just, and of course you see the light up underneath the nose on the top part of that, but again, just emulate a little bit of it. Let's go dark. So not completely dark because you'll make him too starry. Just a soft, slightly darker. And let's just whisper in the idea of the eye sockets, okay? Keep it very, what we want to say, very brush sketch. In other words, not too defined here, where it makes it harder to paint him later. So just the ideas here, okay? And he is hard to do when he's this small. That's why I say you may want to, you know, do a larger one, those of you that you might have an easier, or go back to a more simplistic face like I showed you on some of the westerns. You know, more simplistic. There we go. So he looks kind of angry, but that's okay. We'll fix all of this. This is just our first look, right, guys? I'm going to come in here and tap some softer colors and some stuff around, so we'll get all of that. Feel very confident. A little bit more, you know, and on a lot of Howard's paintings, he gets these beautiful kind of real dark reddish tones in, and I love that. And I'll put just a touch of that into here. We'll do a lot more, though, because I want to bring in that portrait face and look at that. Let's take some of the burnt sienna, just a touch of the blue, maybe even the sapphire blue here, so grays just a bit. And we're going to pull the hair down a couple of times. This is going to frame his face down through here, and it's going to drag right on down through there. Okay, this is not the dark, this is the undertone here of this, what we want to do. And I don't want it to go out quite that far. There, that's better. And down, right? Maybe back behind him there. So that's the one tone. And then we'll go burnt sienna and blue, sometimes even that red in there gets a real nice dark, even a little bit of the violet, just nice and dark here. But we don't want to drag this everywhere. So we'll frame his face a bit, pull down the side here, like that. We'll use a smaller brush, more detailed brush later, but this just gets the initial look. A couple of real quick marks here, okay, down this side here, back stopping at his shoulder, there like that. There we go. I really like to get that edge and see this edge. See how wet that blue is. See how it's still just wet, right? And really keep this edge from being dominant. We want this to recede. So what I'll do later on in the painting is put the blue edge back on and soften into that and push into that so that edge gets some different looks here. Right down the sides. But this is your first look. You don't have to have him perfect at all. Matter of fact, we're not. We're just getting some tones in there. But I want this kind of soft. There. Let's take some of that dark, just for giggles, because I kind of lost all my feathers up here, and I'll just kind of sketch them in again. I just think it just helps him look like a Native American. Here. There. Like that. That's kind of neat. We're going to be putting, I'm going to put decorations of these feathers in for the horse as well. That came out kind of neat. Just real quick. Let's just draw a line. You know, we're going to be painting this guy in a few hours. And, you know, of course, Turpin's paintings are much larger and really beautifully detailed. And he takes, you know, 1 to 2 months on it. And we're going to do it in a few hours. But they are magnificent subjects because there's so much stuff going on. They're magnificent subjects to take several hours and do a beautiful full painting and stuff. And yeah, I like in the video interview of him that you can watch, he says, you know, he's been painting all his life, and I believe he's in his 90s, like 94, and he says, I've barely scratched the surface of the subjects of the Plains Indians and the, you know, the Native American culture. Just magnificent. So, here we go. Just a idea there. That's kind of neat. And I'm just doing this just because I can, and I like to block in to a point here that I still, you know, that I can see everything. So let's just give the idea here of this, his spear that's going to be in his hand. Here. We'll give the idea of that so we can kind of see that, right? Yeah. That'll work. This will all work. We'll put in some looks of some of the buckskin edges here onto the back. That looks pretty good as far as that goes. Now let's increase some of the shadowing here, so we definitely see this. We might, even though it's really kind of too soon to do, you know, he has a lot of necklace decorations, that kind of stuff. You can drop a little bit of that in so you can see that, but you know, that's kind of up to you if you want to do that. Maybe a little bit of this brown into this feather. It's right there. We'll get even more stuff going on. We could have a bit of this color. You know, some of the colors that you're using on him up into those shadows. Let's get a little bit of the reds, burnt sienna, touch of the blue to help darken that. Real beautiful, deep flesh tone. That's kind of neat. Don't want it too gray. You want to get that warmth of that reds in there. The burnt siennas and reds. Like we do in a portrait. You know, you get some of those deeper rosy tones and stuff. But we're not light. We're in the shadow here. There we go. And then we'll burnt sienna, touch of red, white, and yellow. And Beautiful tones. Bring up his mark of his chest right there before it goes back to the shadow. I want to build up. I built up with the airbrush, you know, in Photoshop. I built up this shadow, or excuse me, this light right here that I really liked. And so I really want that light right there on the point of his shoulder. I want to bring that forward there. And so we'll do that. So that's going to be an important area. Of course, again, we'll work it several times, right? This is just our first look. I want to blur out some of that. But we're going to be able to, he's going to be big enough for us to get some nice interest in there. So, but it'll take some time to work all of those marks. Put a little light here again, right there. It'll take some time to work those marks. Burnt sienna by itself is a nice intermediate tone between that shadow, or so we want to round off the form shadow here on the top of his forehead. That burnt sienna just works kind of nice for that, right? The form shadow on this side here that's going to push back this side of the face here. That does that right there. And then, of course, it gets a little deeper over here where the shadow of this side of his face goes almost into the full shadow on the into his hair and stuff there too. So, but we'll work this. Really, it's kind of neat to see him coming. We can see how we're going to do him, how we're going to paint him. Here. This is good. Right through here. But I plan on a lot of times, guys, because, you know, I have, you know, ridges and stuff in here into his face and, you know, the highlights on the cheeks and stuff that we have to get in. And I really want to just start attacking it right now, but I want to do the horse before I do him. Just because I like setting that horse, but we can see here just with this. Let's open up his eye socket there a little bit more. So you're just putting in basically the shadows of the eye sockets, if that makes sense. Here. And they're wider in the forehead along the cheeks and stuff, so. There we go. But we'll have that nice big set here. He's kind of looking off into the distance, so he's going to have some lines there to help support that. A little more shadow between the chin and the lower here. But it is, you can see the foundation. That's the biggest thing, is you're not painting the perfect portrait right now. We're putting in the foundations of what he's going to look like. It's just the underlying foundation. And just like I like to work portraits, I'll work these tones several times. I'll work these on him. I want that shadow here of the hair to go in to that. Maybe we put the mark of a lower ear there or so. Not quite sure yet, but we'll see. We'll work this in. A little bit of the shadow here. Here we go. More of the, as you go, you know, come out of those real super deep areas of shadow. Maybe we'll put in more of the burnt sienna into some of those tones there. So maybe down along this arm, almost pure burnt sienna. Beautiful color on him. There. There we go. Start to find his shapes. Let's, we didn't put any shadow. Burnt sienna, some blues and medium beige, burnt sienna, and some blues. A lot of medium beige. Kind of grays up just a bit. Some of the shadows here on his buckskin, up along the edge of that light, up in here right where it helps lift that shield off him, back in through here. There we go. So we didn't put any shadows on that buckskin yet, so we'll add a few little marks of that where you would have that crease of the knee. Let's take some medium beige, a little yellow, a little light. That'll be a nice color for the highlight on the buckskin here. So we'll drop in a bit of that there. Lots to do on the painting, but you kind of get a feel for it. This is going to be a fun one. It's going to be a nice. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take all of these soft colors here. And of course, I've lost all of my drawing over here, so I'll be doing it here. Just very atmospheric, soft color. Sketching in, and I'll leave the marks and movements to keep them atmospheric back there. Little grays, darks. Some of the burnt sienna. Let's go burnt sienna and white. Just ever so soft. Just pull down for the idea of his face there. And, you know, you'll get as you're putting stuff in like this, you'll get little brush mark, you know, when you're light, you'll get an unevenness of the color. So it's not all the same. So it's almost like it's a little mottled. And that's perfect for, you know, leaving the highs and lows. It almost like does the shadowing and stuff for you. So if your color's a little thicker and you put it in there, and see this blue, this is still wet. Do you see that? That's right in there. That's all still wet. So this paints into it really nice. And so if you're really dry, you might want to have just a light coat. Just take some of your lighter color there, the color you saved, and just re-moisten that, okay? Keep everything here a little bit, so my horse is gone, so I'll re-sketch this. Let's bring his front shoulder and leg up. That big chest, one right up through here. Maybe he's walking forward. We'll make him walking forward slightly. Here, back leg, blur that in. Should be a little thinner probably there, Dave, but with just a whisper of stuff, right? I'm going to add a little extender. This will thin it out, allow me to do a little more sketching. So maybe we'll give the idea of where his ears are going to be, down for his face and his neck, and we're going to put some light color in there. So it's basically just kind of sketching him, see? And when you're painting small figures like this, you just have to come close to the shape. You don't have to be perfect. You know, matter of fact, it's kind of harmful if you get too perfect. They get too stiff. So we want just an idea of them here. This shadow that I'm putting on now, which is just more color, not as thin, is going to make them, the lights pop off a bit more. So, but very impressionistic here. So we'll go lighter right here with the color, more transparent, and then that looks like the light, the highs and lows of the lights. Little darkness framing down his face, which will give you the feeling of the hair and stuff. So, and that old brush really does a great job of it there, you know. Really does. Little shadow for his arm there. But yeah, I'll do a heck of a lot more. A little darkness on the pony here. a little bit darker. But I will do a bit more in details and stuff on here. But he has the nice kind of lighter gray on the pony in the front side here. So this will take a couple of times to paint that. But we will. Small little marks. And in all things, don't think about, and this is the one mistake that a lot of young artists or I made even as an older artist after I painted for a number of years and I switched over to genres of painting figures, is I don't try to do it once. I know I'm going to do it again. So I know I just take my marks, my look, till I start to get a little bit close, but not perfect, because I know I'm going to do it again. Does that make sense? So I know I'm going to be coming back in there again. So I don't ever try to get it perfect. Here's a little yellow. That's going to say his arm and stuff there, and down the front. Maybe some of his buskin. We'll put even more on there later on, but that hair's a little bit too much, so I'll just blur that off here. Keep it soft, blurry. Keep it soft and blurry. There. There we go. Yep, he's going to be coming up here saying, what do you see there? Some softer horse. After we get our other horse and stuff, then just going to use a soft gray to, and I'm going to put one right back here too. I think that would be nice. And I might put a few more ideas of them further back here. One or two further back, you see them. It just helps the depth of the painting here. Simplistic. There. See that little shadow on the chest of that horse, forcing what is going to be the head of this pony up forward, really does a lot. Just an idea here. Here, just boom. Of the hair. Just an idea here. There. Little bit of marks. There. Good. For that kind of does the setup of everything here. And I'll do more. I will do a lot more. We'll paint these up more and put the grasses in and all these beautiful stuff. We'll come in here and, start to dapple up and put the little dappling marks on. And then we'll paint around them and do this beautiful Appaloosa, almost like that gray dapple we did in the last painting. We'll start some of those little marks and stuff on him. That would be fun. And I think as this starts to, it's still a little wet, but it starts to get a little bit drier, I might just add or clean up some of this eye that I want to do. And just to clean up and get a better idea of his shape, his form here. A little dark. Here we go. Flat on that face there. Yep. And let's get, just before I leave here, I'll push up just a bit more white. Not pure white, just a bit more white right up in here. Right down his nose here. There we go. Just it'll dry slightly darker. It always does, right? Yeah. If you notice that, it always does. And let's get that kind of a soft shadow, little bit of blue and medium beige. I like the blue into the shadow on this, in the white areas on this horse, because it's carrying the sky back forward into some of his look here. And let's make sure his face is wide enough to catch that eye. There we go. But there we go. We'll shadow and stuff and highlight and get more of his structure in again on the next one. We'll do that on the next video. This will be fine for our initial block in. This will be good. I'll take a photo of this, of the block in. And let's get a little more light right up here. Some of this shadow right up here. There we go. That'll work. Blur those edges. Don't keep, you could see like little marks, little bits of the light of his cheek here, picking up a touch of the light. Look for your light and shadow, but, we're going to do this again, so don't get too carried away. Just look for little things here. I'm just finishing up. This is a good spot to take a photo. And all the colors that I have in here, see, I want to get some more soft and tones, but I see the structure of his face. That's all I want to see right now. We don't want to go in there and whatever you do, all these little marks, if you look up here close on the marks, there's a softness between everything. So yes, okay, this little dip in his top of his forehead, or over his eye socket, makes him look a little strange, but that's okay. I mean, I can fix that, but that's okay. I don't want you to worry about those little things, because those little things we can take care of later. And if you're trying to do it too much right now, it'll drive you nuts. So, you can just come in there and there we go. But that is, I don't really want to do too much more than get him there, and let's get that shadow on that side of the face again, across that mouth, and that angle here on his chin. There we go. Yeah, and maybe just a touch darker. It's so much easier after this is dried a little bit. Right now he's painting really nice, because this is dried a bit. There we go. Down that side. That's about all I really want to do right now. I want to do a lot more, but that's all I really want to do right now. Sets him in, so we got him good and blocked in here. The overall look. I love the sky back behind him. That just works. It's just this nice, and others coming up back. We'll be able to work that some more with the next one, okay? And I'll get that up, the next one up as soon as possible here for you guys, okay? So we can continue on with the study. And I will use some more detail brushes, though, when I go into here, and of course onto this horse. I have no reins and stuff, so I want to do that. And I'm going to be looking at the horse to see just how much more decoration I want to do. But next time we'll bring him forward, the dappling and stuff like that. We'll add some more details onto him, refine some areas, and add the next layer, and then repeat it again, and maybe repeat it again. Okay, so anyway, good fun. Glad you decided to join me on this. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if this is the first time you're watching one of our lessons. And hit the like button for us, guys. That really does help. And especially those of you that want to see more of the Westerns and, see some of these types of paintings, make sure you hit that. And that just, we go by how many likes and stuff we hit. What the overall likes is how many videos of each different genre we try to put up. So if you like it, put it up there, and we'll get some more of that in there. All right, so the next one we'll come in and add some more of the grasses and stuff here, do some more of the refinement on him, bringing him up a little bit more detailed. Okay, all right, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.